don't think we're allowed to have these thoughts. Let's say that I was a person that did not live with bipolar disorder and I came up with the pie in the sky idea. The conversation is negative, but it also sort of moves forward. People with bipolar disorder don't get that. We just get shut down immediately, told that this is a symptom of our illness and that we need to cease this line of communication. So they withdraw all that help. They withdraw all that information and they leave us to fend for ourselves, which actually puts us in a worse position.
You're listening to Inside Bipolar, a Healthline Media podcast, where we tackle bipolar disorder using real-world examples and the latest research.
Hey everybody, my name is Gabe Howard and I live with bipolar disorder.
And I'm Dr. Nicole Washington, a board-certified psychiatrist.
And we continue to get your emails. If you have an idea for the show, a topic suggestion, or something that you want us to cover, hit us up at show@psychcentral.com. And we've been getting a lot of emails about how, hey, I live with bipolar disorder, and every time I do something, people immediately try to tie it into a symptom of bipolar disorder. Now, Dr. Nicole, as a guy who lives with bipolar, I'm just like, yeah, that happens. Like, you want us to do an episode on how people suck? I'm not trying to be mean, but let's just call it out. Yes, it sucks to have everything you do try to be tied back to a symptom of bipolar disorder. But finally, we got enough emails that I started to pay attention because they started to include specific examples. And the example that was the tipping point was, hey, sometimes I like to lay in bed all day and watch Netflix. I just want to stream the entire season of Stranger Things because I deserve it. And then everybody's like, uh-oh, depression.
I don't know if people suck, Gabe. I don't
know. You're hung up on that one, huh?
I am. I don't know if people suck. I don't think they mean to. I don't think in general people mean to do this to you. I really don't. I do agree with you, though. I do think that when you live with an illness like bipolar disorder, people are always on guard around you. And I will say that is 100% accurate. And as the psychiatrist, I find myself on guard with my patients. So if a patient tells me they did something big, or I got a tattoo, or, oh, I cut all my hair off, or I dyed my hair purple, I cannot help but have a moment of, are they manic? Is something happening?
But this is where the path does diverge in the woods a little bit.
Yes.
I want to say this to myself and everybody living with bipolar disorder. But I'm not mad when my psychiatrist is concerned that it could be bipolar disorder. Yeah, that's kind of their job. But why is that going to be my circle of friends? Like, why can't I just hang out with my friends and have ideas without them judging me?
Because they're worried. I don't think it's judgment. I think it's concern. I think it is fear. When I get that, when somebody comes in and they say, oh, I got 2 new tattoos since I saw you last month, or I noticed that their hair is purple and it was not before. These things happen. And I do have a moment. I think they can't help but have that moment. It's just that I know how to take that moment and tease it out a little bit. I know what to say and what not to say. Whereas they don't always have the tools to know what to say and what not to say.
I get the anxiety. I mean, and I think people living with bipolar disorder understand the anxiety, the worry, the concern, the fear, the frankly, the trauma of what they went through with their loved one. I don't think anybody is really denying that. But again, if everything you do is a symptom of bipolar disorder, you're never going to reach wellness and you're never going to have your own personality. And there's so many examples. You like here in my head, I'm trying to like grab a hold of one. So for example, is Gabe just excited about the episode? Gabe's got a lot of ideas, or is this racing thoughts? Oh, mom, dad, brother, sister, friend is worried that I'm having racing thoughts, and then mania is going to follow, and then I'm going to spend all my credit cards. And all because I stumbled over my words, they're demanding my wallet and giving me the 3rd degree. And I'm like, I'm just sitting here at dinner, guys. I just got excited about the dinner conversation, and now everybody's side-eyeing me. And that's really uncomfortable, and it takes all of the joy out of life. And for people with bipolar disorder, the people who are listening, they're like, yeah, and it makes me not want to go to dinner with you people anymore.
Yeah. It can absolutely drive a wedge between a person living with an illness like bipolar disorder and their support system. The support system has to figure out how to manage their own emotions and how to manage their own fears and concerns about their loved one in a better way.
And I know that we have a healthy contingent of family members and friends and support people listening. So, hey, I hope you're getting something out of this. I hope you're learning your lesson. But for my people with bipolar disorder, what I always say when I pick up on this, and I pick up on it quick, and I suspect a lot of my people with bipolar disorder, they pick up on this quick too. And they say things like, hey, I appreciate you being worried about me, but I'm still a person. Or I appreciate you being worried about me, but I fall under the same things that humans do all the time. Or I appreciate you being worried about me, but it's not X, it's Y. And just address it head on. I think that sometimes in this desire to keep the peace, we sort of go passive aggressive, where mom, dad, brother, sister, bestie, work colleagues, whomever say the thing that we don't like, and then we just get passive aggressive. We get quiet. We start making snarky comments, and then we wonder why the whole thing devolves. We play a role in that. I do want to say, though, Dr. Nicole, it sucks to have to gatekeep this. And the examples from other areas are vast. Do you have any idea how much I learned from women and from people who live below the poverty line about this privilege expectation? I just learned an incredible amount that parallels, I think, what my people with bipolar disorder are going through.
Gabe, you're right. And we do see it in a lot of areas. And listening to you talk about that makes me think about being a woman in medicine. Medicine culturally is still a very masculine field, a very male dominated field. We see our male colleagues get really heated up about things, maybe raise a voice, maybe yell, and nobody really bats an eye. And I do see that when women doctors do it, they are more likely to be reported to upper management, reported to supervisors because they're seen as aggressive or angry. People talk about not feeling safe, but they use adjectives like passionate for the male doctors who do this. It's not fair. And I can definitely see how living with an illness like bipolar disorder, you feel like I want to be able to raise my voice a little bit too. Not that any of us should, but I want to be able to have a moment like that without people automatically assuming it's because I have bipolar disorder. Maybe I'm just having a bad day. Like, can I just have a bad day?
To use your doctor example, what you specifically want is equal treatment, right? If male doctors are allowed to raise their voice, be aggressive, and be demanding, then you, as a female doctor, want to be able to raise your voice and be aggressive and be demanding.
But I mean, I don't think that any of us should be raising our voices and yelling and being demanding.
Well, no. I completely agree, and that's what makes this difficult, right? That sometimes the things that you're calling out are reasonable, right? Let's shift gears ever so slightly, right? Use a bipolar example. I am super into the idea of owning a music club. Right. I just like to have live music, to have a bar. Now, the first thing that I want to say is I have no experience running a restaurant, no experience running a bar, no experience booking talent. I don't even know what to pay them. But I am super excited about this idea. I've started to, like read articles about it. I'm talking to some of my friends and colleagues who manage bands and do, I'm surrounded by people who do work in these industries, and I'm asking them a lot of questions. And almost all of them, after about 10 minutes worth of conversation about this, say, hey, how you been feeling? And I'm like, wait, what? And they're like, well, like, and I'm like, you're asking if I'm manic, aren't you? You think I'm trying to buy a music club because I'm manic. Whereas I'm doing due diligence. I'm excited about this. I've made zero decisions. And even I recognize that the chances of, middle-aged Gabe switching careers and buying a music club are almost zero. But I am interested in the topic right now, and you are all experts who I have sought out. So I understand why they're worried, but now instead of learning how to book bands or what bands make or how to get a liquor license or what the markup is on cheese sticks or how much security costs to hire, I'm now talking about bipolar disorder. Like I came to you because I was excited, and now you're kind of being condescending.
Okay. But are you really getting a lecture? Are they really being condescending or are they just asking a question? I think those are different things. I think if someone says, "Hey, are you good? Like, do you feel good?" That is them just checking in. And if they're in your support system, which is what makes this whole comparison, this is where we veer off to the left because they're not the same in the sense, or even similar in the sense, you do have bipolar disorder. And I think that people who really care about you or who know you well, they would be doing you a disservice as a friend to just listen to you talk about this, let's face it, really big, grandiose sounding idea without saying, hey, hold on. Like, I get you're interested in this, but can we pump the brakes for a second? Are you good? Like, is this just I'm Gabe and I'm contemplating life things, or is this and I'm not really well in other areas and this is just something brewing? I don't think there's anything wrong with that for somebody who really cares about you and who knows you. It isn't that what your support system is supposed to do?
And you're not wrong, which is what makes it complicated. But I got to tell you, I think that any woman who was listening who got passionate about something or upset about something, and somebody asked her if it was menopause or that time of the month or hormonal fluctuations because they're worried about them, would roll their eyes and think, you've got to be effing kidding me. If you yelled at your husband and he asked you if it was hormones,
First of
I mean,
all,
he just worried about you.
if I yelled at my husband and he asked me if it was my time of the month, y'all better pray for this man because something big is coming. But something big is coming.
I know it's a poor example, but you kind of understand my point, though. You're right. It's a poor analogy, but
Ladies, get him.
I knew this person living with bipolar disorder, and I mean he was going through what I can only describe as mania, and I based this on because he said, "Hey, I'm going to start a podcast, and it's going to win a couple of Webby's awards. I'm going to speak at Oxford. I'm going to speak at the National Press Club, and I'm going to start touring nationally." And I mean, I just knew it was mania, and I immediately said, don't invest in this. Don't waste your time. You need to get on disability, and you need to get a job. You need to find some way to have a stable life. Doing any of that is impossible for a person with bipolar disorder, especially with your history. And thank God Gabe listened and didn't start the Inside Bipolar podcast with Dr. Nicole Washington, because that would have just, oh wait, this happened. So this is where people like me, if you hear that story, it sounds very manic. I mean, you have to admit, a guy with a history of mania, depression, suicidality, psychosis, who's been in and out of mental hospitals, who couldn't hold down a job for a number of years, saying, I'm going to do this, made everybody panic. The problem is that the panic never seemed to stop. I love my mother, and she's been on this show, and even she admitted, she's like, yeah, I did everything I could to discourage him. She did this for years. I was well into my career. Yes, I hadn't won the Webby, I hadn't spoken at Oxford, I hadn't worked with Dr. Nicole, but I was well into my career, and she was still banging the get a 9 to 5, get a 9 to 5. Please just be stable. You're gonna relapse. And that's really sad, because I was working really hard and I was making really good choices and I was running a really good business that ultimately got me all the way to here. But my mother would not get on board for years. Do you know how detrimental it is to have your mother, who you love? I love my mom. Look you in the eyes and say, look, I know you're going to fail and you need to cut this shit out. And you're like telling her the things you're really proud of, and she still can't believe in you because of her own anxiety and her own trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, me opening a music club, it's not a good idea. I know it's not a good idea. I'm just kind of excited about it. And, hey, maybe I'll pick up a weekend shift as a bartender, to kind of submerge myself into the music as kind of a self-sustaining hobby. That's a much better idea for me. But other ideas that I've had, they've paid off like gangbusters. But if I had listened to all the people in my life who told me to take the road more traveled instead of the road less traveled, Robert Frost would be pissed.
I'm
But to
sorry.
the point, how could my mom have expressed her concern? Because that's really the crux of this, right? How can somebody express their concern without taking the wind out of your sails? How can we marry the two, right?
Okay. Well,
Sincerely.
I don't know if moms can. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know if moms know how. I don't know if most moms have that ability. And I do think, it is tough, Gabe, because a lot of moms have a lot of fears about their adult children not being able to take care of themselves in the world and not being able to sustain themselves. And I can't say, honestly, to you, if you didn't have bipolar disorder and you came to your mom and said, "Hey, I'm going to be a podcaster for a living and she still would say, "Gabe, just get a job. Like, just be able to take care of yourself so I can sleep at night, making sure you're not homeless, sleeping in your car as a podcaster." I cannot say that she would not have been just as concerned and worried about you. I can't say that. But I don't think it's wrong that people were concerned in the beginning. I don't think it's wrong.
But when do they let it go? What about friends? My friends did this to me too. And how can they address that concern without taking the wind out of your sails?
Yeah, but that's not a you problem. That then becomes a them problem. That's a them. That's a them issue. That's not a you
But
issue.
it hurts us.
It does hurt you.
Those of us living with bipolar disorder get so sick and tired of bringing up our passions, our dreams, the things that make us excited and give us a zest for life, and constantly be shut down. Let's say this a different way. We have talked on this show before about finding happiness, finding contentment, right? Not dwelling in the anxiety and the depression and the symptoms of bipolar disorder, but finding that thing that makes you want to get out of bed. Well, many of us find it or try to find it or explore it, and we immediately get shut down and told that we can't do it. And you're like, well, that's a them
It
problem.
is a them problem.
Yeah, but the them in this situation has all the power. They've got all the privilege.
They have to figure out how to manage those emotions.
Yeah, they've got to figure it out. There's probably a podcast for them.
They have to
Inside
figure
Friends
that
with
out.
Bipolar.
They
It's
have
run
to
by
figure it out.
Joe and Dr. Lincoln. I don't know.
They have to figure it out. But you're right, it does affect you. So then how do you manage that? But that's where your team comes in. You know that as a person living with an illness like bipolar disorder, you will never get all your support from your family and friends. And you know that. That's why we talk about peers. That's why we talk about community and building community with other people who've been where you are. That's the whole point in you having your community in place, because sometimes your family and those people who are closest to you are not equipped to see you through certain things because they don't get it.
And we're back discussing when people equate everything you think to a bipolar symptom. What I have found, because I want to put some positivity in this, what I have found when people give me this pushback is I say, what information can I provide you with that would make you think this was a good idea? What data do I need to show you? What business plan, what information, what steps do I need to take to get you on board? And if they cannot articulate what they need to see, then I know that they're just not somebody I need to talk to because they can't see past my illness. But if they do articulate, if they say, look, if you show me a business plan that's credible, I will support you in this. Okay, that may be a very high bar, but nevertheless, it's a reasonable bar to them, and I have to decide if I want to show it or not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I think about it, I just think that having a business plan doesn't negate you from being manic or this being out of the result of mania. It really sounds like the key is this coming from a place of illness, or is this coming from a place of this is just some idea I have, whether it's good or bad? I think the first step is really saying to them, hey, I know you're concerned that I'm manic, but let me reassure you. I'm seeing my doctor and therapist regularly. I'm taking my meds. I'm sleeping well. Everything else is going well. It's just an idea I'm throwing around. It seems like the foundation of this issue is it mania? Is it not? So I think that's an easy check-in when the concern is there.
But is it? But honestly, first off, you're a psychiatrist, you're a licensed psychiatrist. We say it at the top of every show. And you know that the criteria is 2 weeks that interferes with the activities of daily living. So the fact that you spent Sunday binging Netflix and everybody wants to know if that is proof of something is the literal equivalent of if your loved one sneezes and you ask them if they're catching a cold. Well, one sneeze does not mean they're catching a cold. One day streaming
But hold
does
on.
not mean anything.
Okay, but hold on. Okay, that might not be the best idea. I am a mom, right? Like literally, listen. If anybody, if I hear one of my kids go, I'm like, "Are you getting sick? You taking your? What's going on with you? Like, are you okay?" That may not be a great idea.
Right, but listen to how you said that. But wait, I'm a mom. If I hear my kid, so you agree that everybody agrees I'm a mom, right? Right, she's a mom. She's overreacting. That's why you said it that way. But I'm a mom. I'm prone to overreact. So you now are using an analogy of your overreaction.
Yeah.
People with bipolar disorder, yes, we expect that from our moms. Hell, we expect that from our grandmas. We expect that from our dads. We expect that from our favorite aunt, uncle, grandfather, right? We get that. We're all on board with that. But you get that from your bestie, right? It's Monday morning. Your bestie sends you a text. What'd you do all weekend? And you're like, it was glorious. I binged watched the entire seasons of Stranger Things on Netflix all weekend. And they immediately write back, uh-oh, do you have depression?
Okay.
They just suck the winds right out of your sail. And like you said, they just became an overbearing, overprotective mom.
Then you need to have conversations with your friends. Then you need to, one, evaluate your friends.
Okay, but how? These are hard conversations to have because they're immediately going to throw back in your face every single thing you've done wrong and how you've worried people.
Then are they your friends?
But they are. They're just like you said, they're just scared.
I don't know. I mean, I just feel like people that love you and people that you love and people that love you back, if they are not willing to manage and work around your bipolar disorder for the sake of your friendship, you have to ask yourself the question, are they really somebody that you can really be that close to? I mean, can I care about you genuinely and not try to learn how to navigate an illness that you have to navigate all day long 24/7? Like, can I really say I really care about you and love you if I'm not willing to do that? If I can't figure out how to not let my fears override common sense and just being in community with you and loving you, then maybe we're not a good fit to be as close as you're trying to make us be. Like, maybe that's a decision you have to make.
Okay, but how do you get them on board? Let's say that they are, right? They're trying. They're trying.
Okay.
Right. And I'm thinking about like my personal story, right? At one point, my best friend took me to a hospital. I was committed to a psychiatric hospital, for delusions and depression and suicidality. And then a year later, I'm talking about starting a podcast and becoming a speaker, and she's just completely shutting it down. She's like, she's doing everything but giving me the finger and walk away. Right. So I need to educate her. Now she's still my best friend. We're solid. I love her more than almost anybody. Right. But in those moments, she couldn't get past the dude. A few years ago, I dropped you off at a psych ward and now you're going to speak at Oxford. No, I'm not listening to this. But me, I wanted to make plans to achieve a career and to get as much out of life as I could. So, Dr. Nicole, I want to pose it to you first before I offer my own suggestions. How do you convince that person? I agree. If you can't convince them, move on and find a better bestie. That's look. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. But let's try to rehab the relationship first,
Okay.
right? Before you trade in the car, maybe see if it's a simple fix.
I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly, Gabe. I do think some very tough conversations have to be had. And I think you set the tone for them. You bring it up. You say, hey, I think we need to talk about this. I think your response goes a long way. So really knowing what you want to say, how you want to say it, you knowing ahead of time something could be said that could set me off, but I'm not going to let it set me off, because if I get all angry and start yelling and cutting up, that's not going to help my case that I'm stable and that this is just a thought. So I'm going to go into this knowing that this is a very important conversation to me. This is a very important person to me. I just want to talk and have a conversation. If you're not able to do that in that way with just the two of you, I keep saying, therapy is not just for you and your spouse or you and your partner. You can do therapy as an adult with a parent who continues to have difficulty navigating your illness. You can do it with people in your support system. You can talk to your therapist like, hey, can we bring in a couple of my friends? I'm really struggling with this concept of them always thinking I'm ill. Can you help me navigate that conversation? Even if you don't do it in session, maybe in session you can practice the conversation that you're going to have with your friend. These are things that you can do to help jumpstart that process.
These conversations are, of course, vital. And as I've said before, it really does suck that in addition to managing bipolar disorder, you now have to be the elected official about it. But nevertheless, without conversation, without communication, without transparency, you really can't have strong, close relationships, regardless of bipolar disorder. And as much as mental health conversations are improving and podcasts like this exist, I can't help but notice in the stats, it's people who live with bipolar disorder and their loved ones who are listening, which means the rest of society isn't tuning in. Dr. Nicole and I would love that. Our ratings would go way up and we could buy much, much nicer cars. I mean, only one of us has doctor money. Yeah, the other one has to survive on the pittance that podcasters make.
Honey, and she is driving
it's a
a
struggle.
2009 Honda. So let me tell you.
You have a 2009 Honda?
Actually, I have a 2006 Honda. So let me.
You have a 2006 Honda?
Yeah, I drive a 2006 Honda Accord.
You are blowing my mind about what doctor money means. I'm starting to think maybe I did not miss the boat not going to medical school. My car is nicer than that. What's up with that? But I digress though. I think let's say Gabe and Dr. Nicole's relationship. There's a relationship fraught with issues. We've got a board certified licensed psychiatrist and we've got a patient. And Dr. Nicole and I, when we put this show together, we decided that for the purposes of the podcast on the air, we need to stay in those lanes. So sometimes I'm like, no, that's just garbage. I don't buy that at all. And Dr. Nicole can't get offended. She can't get bothered. She can't get worried, right? And Dr. Nicole's got to say sometimes, Gabe, I don't care how bipolar you are or how offended you think you are. Tough. This is just what it is, right? That's why people like the show. We're not tiptoeing around the hard issues that are impacting people's day-to-day lives and their relationships. But there's an undercurrent there, which is that it would be really easy for Gabe and Dr. Nicole to offend each other. And in the very early days, we would do a lot of check-in. I would say, hey, is everything okay? Or are you still good? I don't mean to offend you. I'd listen back and I think maybe I went too far, or during the editing process, like, oh, I don't know, maybe that's just a little too condescending. Let's edit that out and redo it. We were very mindful of it. And then, of course, now 3 years later, we've just fallen into a rhythm. And now we mostly talk about, well, frankly, Batman and Broadway shows and concerts. But the point is that we put in the effort. Because let's face it, there's a reason there's not a lot of board certified psychiatrists and mental patients working together because it's cats and dogs. It's fraught with issues. Dr. Nicole and I put in the work, had the transparency, had the communication, and most importantly, we agreed to hear each other out. And that has solidified our working relationship and allowed us to create this show. I think that is the best example and the best advice I have for my people living with bipolar disorder.
And I will say, I have been doing this for a little bit. Like it takes a lot to get me annoyed or bothered or upset or frustrated with the non-medical opinions that people have. I just don't get worked up about it because I've been listening to them for the better part of 20-something years now. That's very different than your loved one who likely had no clue about what bipolar disorder was before you were diagnosed. And they are trying to navigate this without any of the background that I have about mental illness and how it works and how it doesn't work and all those things. So cutting them a little bit of slack is okay. But I do think it's important, just like in the beginning, of our relationship, we had to be very intentional about making sure that we were on the same page. And I don't think enough people do that with their friendships. They just assume that they're supposed to just click and they're supposed to just happen without any work. But the reality is, all relationships require work.
As we wind down this episode, I want to point out to people living with bipolar disorder that I see you, I hear you. It's annoying. It's terrible. I don't like it. I have feelings about it, and they're frustrated and annoying feelings. But what I think about is that the world was never promised not to be annoying. I don't know where we got this idea that we're going to go through life and not be annoyed. The reality is the choices that people make so that they can live their best life will sometimes be annoying to me. And reality is that the choices that I make to live my best life will sometimes be annoying to others. And if we all want to coexist in a society peacefully, we have to create space for other people to be annoying so that they will create space for us to be annoying. That's not a bipolar thing. That's just a life thing. One of the things that I think about a lot is Hanlon's razor. Hanlon's razor states very plainly, never attribute to malice, which is adequately explained by stupidity. And I really internalize that because, as you said, Dr. Nicole, people are not out there trying to be malicious most of the time. They're just ignorant, right? They're ill-informed, or they're bringing in their own baggage and their own trauma and their own worry. But I know that the way that I react to people who are attacking me, who are being malicious, is very different than the way that I react to somebody who is saying something stupid, who is making a mistake, who is displaying ignorance. And maybe it's because I'm a podcaster, a speaker, and a mental health advocate, and this is my chosen job, but I really got into this business to educate people. And when I want to educate somebody who is ill-informed, I have a much different vibe, a much different tone, and it's a much different conversation than if I am responding to somebody who is attacking me maliciously. So in that split second that somebody says the thing that annoys you, pisses you off, is condescending, is rude, that rankles you, that makes you want to just think about this. Are they being mean or are they stupid? And if they're stupid, educate them, right? You've got a split second, and this works for me like gangbusters. And I'm telling you, you should see my email box. You should see my Q&A at speeches. You should see the things that people walk up and say to me. They are some offensive things. And it would be really easy to say, WTF is wrong with you? But that's never going to educate them. It's never going to get them on my side.
100% of the time, taking the time to figure out why they're concerned about whatever it is they're concerned about, or why they think what they think, is usually the first step in uncovering the motive behind the whole thing. Just 100% of the time. Just take that extra few seconds to figure out, what are you worried about? Why are you concerned about that? Where did you get that from? Will uncover so much and will definitely let you know how you need to handle that person going forward.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We need a few favors from you. Here's what we need you to do. First, wherever you downloaded this episode, follow and subscribe to the show. It is absolutely free and you don't want to miss a thing. Next, recommend the show to everybody that you know. Share your favorite episodes on social media. Bring it up in a bipolar support group. Send somebody an email or a text message with your favorite episodes. Just do whatever you need to do to get the word out, because sharing the show with the people you know is how we're going to grow. My name is Gabe Howard, and I'm an award-winning public speaker, and I could be available for your next event. I also wrote the book, Mental Illness is an Asshole and Other Observations, which you can get on Amazon, but don't get it there. Go over to my website, gabehoward.com, and get a signed copy, and I'll even throw in some free swag. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Ask a Bipolar.
And I'm Dr. Nicole Washington. You can find me on all social media platforms at Dr. Nicole Psych, or on my website, drnicolepsych.com.
And we will see everybody next time on the Inside Bipolar podcast.
You've been listening to Inside Bipolar from Healthline Media and PsychCentral.com. Have feedback for the show? Email us at show@psychcentral.com. Previous episodes can be found at psychcentral.com/IBP or on your favorite podcast player. Thank you for listening.